So now we have first it's Neera Tanden. First it's Neera Tanden pushing around. I could tweet this 1,000 times in response to this ridiculous report that said Russia, Russia was the reason that many Bernie Sanders supporters and black people chose not to vote for Hillary Clinton. First it's Neera Tanden, and you've had, CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times pushing this rubbish. No data to back it up. No nothing to back it up. Just, black people can't think for themselves. It was Russia. Bernie Sanders voters, they can't think for themselves. Russia convinced them. It was those Jesus memes. So now you got Obama's, wizard, David Axelrod. When you consider the narrow margins by which Donald Trump won Michigan and Wisconsin, and the poor minority turnout there, these Russian voter suppression efforts may have been decisive. It would be interesting to see how closely they mirrored the Trump campaign's tactics. Oh, God. Oh, God. So think about how, inherently racist this tweet is. And I don't know David Axelrod. I'm sure he's not actually racist, but this is racist. So he's basically saying, consider the poor minority turnout there. So this Russian voter suppression efforts. So apparently memes on social media of Hillary as the Antichrist are the equivalent of voter ID laws and closing poll stations in minority communities. Real voter suppression tactics. Apparently trolls and negative Hillary Clinton things on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter are the equivalent of, voter ID, closing down polling stations, purging black people off the voter rolls, which they've done in many, many states. So David Axelrod, benefit of the doubt. I don't think he meant to be racist, but you're basically saying black people don't have brains and Russians convinced them not to vote for Hillary. So I decided to do something a little radical. Thanks to Jen. Jen sent me the data. So all these people keep talking about that the Russians hacked Bernie Sanders voters. All these people keep talking about that Russians, might have swayed the difference in Wisconsin or Michigan and swung the election to Donald Trump. So I decided, let's look at the exit polls in Michigan. Let's look at the exit polls in Wisconsin. Let's look at the exit polls in Pennsylvania and Ohio. Because that's something called data, It's this foreign concept to David Axelrod, to Neera Tanden, to MSNBC, to the New York Times. They like to put out this propaganda, this McCarthyite nonsense that, it really took those social media memes to really convince those Bernie voters, you know what? Stay home. Stay home. So I said, let's look at the exit poll because I'd like to see why did these people actually vote for Donald Trump? Why did these people actually vote for Donald Trump? Was it Russia? Was it WikiLeaks and those emails? Was it James Comey? So let's start, if you might, with Ohio. He won a lot by, so I'm not going to bother with Ohio. Let's start with Pennsylvania, okay? Oh, excuse me. No. So Axelrod's tweet was Michigan and Wisconsin, which, by the way, if Hillary Clinton had won Michigan and Wisconsin, she would have still lost the election. If Hillary Clinton won Michigan and Wisconsin, she would have had 258 electoral votes, electoral college votes. Trump would have had 280, so he would have still won if Hillary Clinton won Michigan and Wisconsin. So David Axelrod, he's talking about Russia swung those states, which isn't even, it's ridiculous. But even if she did win those states, it wouldn't have mattered. So this is the exit polls for Michigan. And you're going to begin to see a pattern here. So let's look at most important issue facing the country. And this was Michigan. You see right there? Immigration, 71% of Michiganders thought immigration was their number one issue. Then when you go down, illegal immigrants working in the U.S. should be deported to another country. You're beginning to see a pattern here. 71% in Michigan, top issue. Immigration. Believe that the immigrants should be deported if they're here undocumented. I've always said to you, Trump had them at NAFTA. Effects of international trade. 58% takes away U.S. jobs. So I said, and I've been saying this since the election because I saw it on the campaign trail. You know, don't believe me, who was there and covered these rallies and interviewed hundreds of people. Let's listen to David Axelrod, Neera Tanden, and the rest of the idiots. Let's not listen to actual reporters who interviewed hundreds of people who sat and stood at these rallies and saw their reaction when he said these things on NAFTA, when he said these things on immigration. Let's listen to them. So right there, you got 71%. Immigration, top issue. 80%, deport undocumented. Effects on international trade, takes away U.S. jobs. That 58%, they're talking about NAFTA, folks. That's what that means. So that's Michigan. Now let's look at Wisconsin. You're going to see a pattern. Do you think immigrants to the USA today hurt the country? 78%. 78% think they hurt the country. Most important issue facing the country. 75% of Trump supporters, immigration. 77%. Deport them if they're undocumented. Effects on international trade. 62% takes jobs away from the USA. And this makes sense, by the way, because if you live in Michigan, if you live in Wisconsin, guess what? Guess what? Your jobs were sent to China and Mexico because Bill Clinton signed NAFTA. It's not that complicated why they voted for Donald Trump. Now, you could say, well, that's not fair because Hillary Clinton wasn't the president, it was Bill Clinton. You could say that, but she supported NAFTA when she was first lady. She basically wrote the TPP. She called it the gold standard of trade deals. She was clearly pro-free trade. Because it wasn't her job going to Mexico or China. What do the Clintons care? What does Obama care? They basically let these multinational corporations write these free trade deals. So I just showed you right there the top issues in Michigan and Wisconsin were immigration and trade. So let me ask you, did Russia convince these people that immigration is bad? Did Russia convince these people that their jobs were sent to Mexico or China? Something they saw on Facebook have to convince them that their jobs got sold to Mexico or China? No, I think it was the pink slip they received that convinced them that their job had been sold to China or Mexico. And by the way, I am fiercely against this anti-immigrant fervor because it's not the immigrants stealing their jobs. It's the government that's stealing their jobs. You know, this is data. This isn't my opinion. This is data. These are exit polls. Immigration, trade. Okay, so that's Wisconsin. Let's go to Pennsylvania, where she lost by 44,292 votes. This is Pennsylvania. Most important issue facing the country. 78% of Pennsylvanians, immigration. Should undocumented immigrants be deported? 83%, yes. Effects on international trade. 64% takes away U.S. jobs. They're talking about NAFTA. How do I know? Because I've been to Pennsylvania. I've been to Michigan. I've been to Ohio. I've been to Wisconsin. I have seen cities and towns that look like ghost towns. Boarded up storefronts, boarded up factories, boarded up everything because all of their economy was sold. And the United States government sold these people out and sold these states out. Under Bill Clinton it started, it continued under George W. Bush, it continued under Barack Obama. Ohio. Let's look at Ohio. You're going to see a pattern here, folks. Most important issue facing the country. 77% of Trump supporters. Immigration. Undocumented immigrants should be deported. 81%. Effects of immigration on international trade. 69%. Takes away U.S. jobs. I mean, I will say, I think a lot of these Trump supporters, not that they're evil or not that they're awful, all of them, because I met a lot of them and they're not all racist. They're misguided. What they don't understand is that immigration is not what is causing their is not what's causing their factories to close down. Immigration is not what's causing their factories to close down. Immigration is not why they have to work 2 to 3 jobs. Immigration is not why they haven't gotten a pay raise in 20 years. The government is why, because the government allowed their jobs to be sold to other countries. The government has allowed corporations to essentially do whatever the hell they want and basically disregard workers. The United States was not always that way. In the 1950s and 60s, a CEO maybe made like 15 times their worker. Now it's 250 to 300 times their worker. And back in the day, I was just having a conversation with someone about this. Back in the day, CEOs in America, it was a competition. How many jobs have I created? CEOs are proud of the amount of jobs they created. That was the competition. Now it's how much profit for my shareholders have I created at how few of jobs have I created that profit. Because there's a lack of morality in this economy. This economy is not an economy, it's a mafia. But nobody talks about these facts. Nobody talks about data. The corporate media, which is essentially, at this point, they say Fox News is an arm of the Republican Party. Well, is CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times any different at this point? Sure, I don't think they're as racist as Fox News. I don't think they're as fact-free as Fox News. But CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, they're literally just regurgitating the propaganda now of the Democratic Party. That Russia, convinced Bernie Sanders voters. Have any of these ever spoken to a Bernie Sanders voter? Mr. Black, they're all bought off. I agree. Have any of them ever spoken with actual Bernie Sanders voters or black voters? Because I could tell you one thing. The black voters that I spoke with that supported Bernie did so because Hillary Clinton called them super predators and Bill Clinton put their family members in jail with the crime bill. That, by the way, Joe Biden wrote the crime bill. You won't ever hear that talked about on corporate media, but Joe Biden drafted the crime bill. So at the end of the day, it's very clear why Trump won those states. And I got news for you. He won Michigan by 10,704 votes. So essentially, David Axelrod and Neera Tanden think that, 10,704 people didn't vote for Hillary Clinton because they saw Russian memes on Twitter? 10,704 people didn't vote for Hillary Clinton because there was posts of Hillary as the Antichrist? This is how out of touch these people are. And they're doing this intentionally. They're pushing this propaganda intentionally. She lost Wisconsin by 22,748 votes. So, almost 23,000 people didn't vote for her because the Russians brainwashed them on Instagram. By the way, how do you even know all these people are even on social media? And he won Pennsylvania by 44,292 people. So we are to believe that 77,744 Americans, or even half that, let's say it was half of 77,000, half of these people didn't vote for Hillary Clinton because they were swayed by things they saw on social media. Number one, there's no actual way to prove that, but we can do things to disprove it. I just did. So I hope, Jen, do you mind putting the links in the live chat to those exit polls? So if you want to bring facts to an argument with your neoliberal friends about this, show them the exit polls from Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. Show them why these Trump voters voted for him. This is why Trump won those states. It's not because of Russia. And at this point, this kind of talk, I'm not just doing this topic to get clicks. I'm doing it because it's dangerous. When you start pumping into the media and system, when you start pumping into the system this propaganda, that essentially what it does is it tries to serve as an excuse for why someone like Donald Trump is president. Because they don't want to actually look at the real reason Donald Trump is president. It's not because Donald Trump is something special at all. It's because Donald Trump was very, very intuitive to see that the majority of people in this region in America, and frankly, the majority of people in the country overall, not just in the Rust Belt, are living paycheck to paycheck. There has been a grand heist bank robbery since the late 1970s in this country. And our wealth, because we create the wealth, it is the middle class and now the working poor that actually create the wealth of this country. We are the ones that are the producers. That productivity chart is not from the yacht owners. It's from the workers. So we create the wealth. And our productivity, our production, the fruits of our labor has been stolen by rich people, but more importantly, the servants of those rich people, the United States government. Because the U.S. government works for the rich people and the donors, not us. That's right. That's why it's so dangerous when you start seeing these pushing people like Beto O'Rourke. Because the most dangerous people are not Donald Trump. He's dangerous in several ways. But the most dangerous people are not the kinds that sound so awful and sound so, like a shock to the system. The most dangerous ones are the ones that sound lovely and sound just like us and sound progressive, but are twisting a knife while they're doing that, are putting a knife in you while they do that, like Obama. And frankly, I think Beto, based on his record. So I don't know what we're going to see next. First, there was this stupid New York Times story. Then Hillary Clinton's campaign has been pumping this nonsense out. And I guarantee you, the media is going to, if Bernie runs, it's going to be one of the first questions they ask him. What do you have to say for the fact that Russia influenced your voters? No data. Nothing to back it up. Pure propaganda. And you know what Bernie Sanders better say? Russia didn't cause half of this country to be in poverty. Russia did not cause the top 1% to own 90% of the wealth in this country. Russia didn't cause this planet to be burning. Russia hasn't built the frack gas pipelines in this country. Russia hasn't contaminated our water. So you could try and deflect and distract and create a boogeyman. Russia didn't do any of that. We've done that. More importantly, the oligarchs have done that.